To say that the Seahawks have the Vikings number will be a slight understatement. In their last 7 matchups, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, and the Seattle Seahawks are a perfect 7-0 against the Minnesota Vikings. Their last victory came 12 years ago when Brett Favre was still the starting quarterback back in 2009. And with 2 gut-wrenching losses to start the season, that first one in overtime against the Bengals and that last one on that last-second missed field goal attempt against the Cardinals, I guess it's safe to say that the Vikings' backs are against the wall and they're desperate entering this point in the season. However, is that going to be enough for them to prevail and exercise their Seattle demons? Well, let's talk about it. This video is sponsored by BetUS.com. Have you tried the #1 sportsbook in America yet? That's right, BetUS.com is a place where you can make some extra cash on your sports bets today. And on top of that, we have an extra gift for y'all. Be sure to use our promo code STEEZY in all caps to receive a 125% sign-up bonus when you sign up today, up to $2,500 on your first deposit. Remember, you do have to be of age to use this website, so keep that in mind moving forward. Saya, roll the clip.
Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the.
The Minnesota Vikings might be looking at Derrick Henry's second half performance against the Seahawks last week as their saving grace. Now, why do I say that? Because they have a top-tier running back in Dalvin Cook. However, that just might be negated by the fact that Dalvin Cook has been unable to practice all week because of an ankle injury that he sustained in that loss against the Cardinals last week. While his availability isn't in any real danger, what I can say is that he won't be 100%. And while he is a top-tier running back, no running back can match the sort of production and talent that Derrick Henry possesses. Yes, Seattle did collapse in the second half, but it was a tale of two halves. They absolutely shut down the run in the first half, signaling that Derrick Henry can be stopped. But the problem is, or the difference between Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry is the fact that as the game wears on, as the game progresses, the more touches that Derrick Henry has, the better he gets. And with Dalvin Cook at less than 100%, and the fact that he doesn't even run that same sort of running style as Derrick Henry, can we really count on Dalvin Cook exploiting that Seattle run D to the tune and to the same sort of production that Derrick Henry did? I think not. And seeing as how Dalvin Cook is the engine, he is this Minnesota Vikings offense. Kirk Cousins in that pass game, they play off of Dalvin Cook. And so if your main man isn't 100%, then how do you expect the Minnesota Vikings to come out and be able to go head-to-head, to go toe-to-toe with the Seattle Seahawks? I understand Seattle's back end, Seattle's secondary is an issue, and Trey Flowers has been absolutely disastrous. Just ask Julio Jones. Kirk Cousins does have the weaponry, despite being an average quarterback at the very best. He has the weaponry to be able to exploit that questionable Seattle secondary. Obviously, we all know what Justin Jefferson is capable of. Adam Thielen is one of the best route runners in all the National Football League. And KJ Osborne has been a reliable number 3 option for the Vikings. But like I said, everything plays and goes off of Dalvin Cook. How's that passing game going to be able to function at an optimal level if their main man isn't 100%? Now, going over to the offensive line, that offensive line is also an absolute mess. Not only that, their secondary is also an absolute mess. Patrick Peterson, you guys remember who he is? Well, this season, he's been one of the worst cornerbacks in all of football. Every quarterback that has thrown in his direction is completing a perfect passer rating against him, 158.3. His counterpart, Bashaud Breeland, isn't doing much better. His opponent passer rating, 156.3. Pro Football Focus has their top 2 corners along with their slot corner as 3 of the worst corners in all of football up until week 2. And yes, I know it's early, but this team is also dead last in opposing completion percentage at 77.8 and second to last in opposing yards per attempt at 10.5. That is bad news, and that does not bode well for Russell Wilson coming into town. Russell Wilson currently leads the NFL in quarterback passer rating, and that doesn't bode well for Russell Wilson coming into town. Russell Wilson currently leads the NFL in quarterback passer rating at a sparkling 146.9, and despite the offense having stalled out in the second half of the last 2 games, he's been on a tear and he's been absolutely balling. He's one of a few quarterbacks in the league who has yet to throw an interception, and I do not see that changing against that abysmal Vikings secondary. The only real worry on that Vikings defense is Danielle Hunter, and with Seattle not having Brandon Shell in the lineup, well, that's going to hurt. He feasted last week against the Cardinals to the tune of 3 sacks, and the Vikings are actually amongst the top 5 in the NFL in sacks. But aside from him, he's pretty much a one-man army. There is no other sources of pass rush on that team. And like I said, the secondary has been absolutely terrible. Anthony Barr is going to be out. And yes, they do have Eric Kendricks, but that defense is already behind the 8 ball, as well as the offense. The Seattle offense is going to come in. They're going to look to score points early. They're going to look to build a lead early. And they're going to look to take away that running game of Minnesota's. Now, with an offensive line that is struggling as bad as Minnesota's, look for Seattle's pass rushers to be able to get pressure and get after Kirk Cousins. Look for Brian Moore to step back in after having missed that last game against the Titans. He's been able to log 2 straight limited practices, and so he should be good to go in this game. And for those of y'all who forgot, in week 1, he was the unsung hero. He was one of the biggest reasons as to why Jonathan Taylor and that top tier Colts ground attack was held to a less than stellar effort, and one of the reasons why they averaged under 4 yards a carry on that day. He had a very high Pro Football Focus rating, and he is an absolute stud against the run. Now, on offense, yes, like I mentioned earlier, Seattle is going to be missing right tackle Brandon Shell, and that's going to hurt them in pass protection. But as long as Seattle is able to key in on Danielle Hunter and send extra blockers in that direction, Minnesota's pass rush isn't going to be an issue. Russell Wilson's going to have time to exploit that secondary, and I can see Russell Wilson putting together a bounce-back performance en route to a Seattle victory. Seattle last week played very uncharacteristic football. And while they have been undisciplined for the last couple of years, what I mean by they played an uncharacteristic brand of football is the fact that this team choked. Seattle never chokes and loses games. With that in mind, look for the Seattle Seahawks offense to come in and get the ball to their playmakers. DK Metcalf has yet to have a 100-yard game this season. Yes, while the targets have been there, Tyler Lockett has been the one to ball out. D. Eskridge is yet again out, and so look for Seattle to go back to Gerald Everett and go back to Will Dissly in the passing game to complement both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Yes, if you guys remember what happened last year, Seattle barely won in overtime, having completed 3 straight 4th downs on their final possession to win by 1 point. I don't see this game being nearly as close. Like I mentioned, the Vikings have way too many concerns on defense, and while they do have the weapons to exploit Seattle's questionable secondary, I just don't know if they're going to be doing that with the lead, or I don't know if they're going to be doing that with Dalvin Cook playing at his absolute best. Does Seattle advance to 2-1, or does Minnesota open the season through week 3 at 0-3? With their backs against the wall, this team is desperate, and I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota does pull out the victory, but Seattle has a pretty clean record when coming off a loss, especially Russell Wilson. Look for that team to bounce back, and that team should be fine without Brandon Shell and some of those other pieces on offense, but I expect Seattle to put up a whole bunch of points. My final score prediction, Seattle 34, Minnesota 24. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on all socials at Steezy Smith. All glory to God, and Steezy out. Again, this video is going to be dedicated to Mr. Todd Nas. While that concludes this video, we have loads of other content. You don't have to stop watching there. Other content on our channel homepage, as well as our social media platforms. And again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.